Hello and welcome to Run Testers, my name's Nick and this is our full review of the Hoka Clifton 10. The Clifton is one of the most popular shoes, maybe the most popular shoe I'd say in fact, in the Hoka range. It's their mid-range cushioned neutral shoe, coming in a bit cheaper than models like the Skyflow or the Bondi, and it's fair to say you got a pretty significant update with the Clifton 10, which has a higher drop and a higher stack height in the heel than the previous model. It cost $150 in the US, which is a small rise in price on the previous model. In the UK, the Clifton 9 was £130, but I don't have the pricing confirmed for the Clifton 10 just as yet. The weight is 285 grams or 10 ounces in a UK size 9, which is a US 9.5, and the drop is 8mm with a stack height of 42mm at the heel, 34 at the forefoot in the men's shoe. So Hoka in general sticks pretty resolutely to a 5mm drop across all of its cushioned training shoes, so the Clifton is now a bit of an outlier. You've added 3mm of foam to the midsole stack at the back of the shoe to create that higher drop, so it still will have the same amount of foam under the forefoot as the previous model, but you've now got a higher heel. The other way it stands out from the rest of Hoka shoes is that the Clifton 10 is still using the brand's compression molded EVA midsole foam, which was used on the previous model of the shoe as well as the previous model of the Bondi, but now the Mac, Bondi and Skyflow shoes in the current Hoka range all have a supercritical EVA foam in there, so it's fair to say the Clifton doesn't have the latest and best foam in Hoka's range, but it is still a pretty comfortable foam, pretty balanced foam, but it now does stand out for that drop and having that slightly different foam to the other shoes in its cushion range. You still have Hoka's Meta Rocker design as you'd expect. You've got an active foot frame around the back of the shoe, which I think more or less means the bucket seat your foot kind of sits in with sidewalls of foam there to create stability at the back of the shoe there. You have a jacquard knit upper with a nice bit of tatting on the tongue and around the collar, quite a high heel tab there and a pretty significant internal heel counter. In general, the Clifton 10 is built to be a pretty stable shoe with that heel counter, sidewalls of foam, all that kind of stuff. And the fact the foam is reasonably firm as well helps with that as well. And then you've got a dual abrasion rubber outsole with pretty good coverage on the heel and forefoot, as you'd expect in the key impact areas. Comes to the fit of the Hoka Clifton 10, it's been all good for me in my normal running shoe size. I am a UK 9 in general and have always got on very well with the fit of Hoka shoes because they do tend to have a slightly narrower fit than other brands, and I have quite a narrow foot. I think the Clifton 10 is a little bit wider than maybe some past Hokas in general, and there will be wide and extra wide options in the range as well. All round I found the fit of the shoe really good for me. You've got this very high heel tab at the back, which I found supported my Achilles and cradled it without irritating it in any way. Good amount of padding there for a nice step-in comfort feel as well. So all round I was very happy with the fit of the Clifton 10 in my normal running shoe size, same size I use across the Hoka range. So I've run 70k in the Hoka Clifton 10 across a range of runs. I've done some very standard, nice and easy daily training in the shoe, along with a couple of easy to steady progression runs of around an hour. I do think it's a very solid daily trainer. Like, it's not something that really stands out or shines in any particular way, but it delivers a nice, comfortable, stable feel. I think it's a shoe that will work for lots of people. You know, it provides a nice amount of support. There's a little bit of zip there if you do up the pace. Mostly it sticks to the overall aims of the Clifton line in general, I think, which is to provide, you know, a nice, supportive, comfortable shoe that will work for lots of different people and be reasonably versatile, but probably more focused on things like comfort. So the extra drop does change the ride feel a little, but actually not as much as I expected. Like, I was running in the shoe by itself and I did do a run wearing the Clifton 10 on one foot and the Clifton 9 on the other just to see how much the change there was there, but didn't feel as dramatic as I thought. Actually, you know, both of them still have that Hoka rocker. They have a similar feel as you move on to the forefoot there. I do think you maybe get a slightly smoother ride in the Clifton 9 when you start to up the pace, when you get a bit more of a snap through from the higher drop on the Hoka Clifton 10, but generally they do have quite a similar feel. I do think maybe the Clifton 9 was a tad softer to me, but maybe that's just because it's an older shoe. Although the 8mm drop I think will draw a lot of attention and it does change the feel of the shoe a little bit, I actually don't think it's as dramatic a change as it maybe looks on paper. So the foam in the midsole will also draw some attention because it isn't the supercritical EVA foam you are getting on other shoes, and you know, it's not as light and poppier feeling a foam as you have got on those other shoes, like something like the Hoka Skyflow, which for me is almost like an upgraded Clifton, has a very similar feel I think to the Clifton 9, except the foam is a bit stiffer and poppier, and that creates a slightly more responsive ride I think at faster paces. Don't really get that so much with the Clifton 10. It's not really a shoe that's relying on the foam to give you a load of, you know, response and energy return when you are going to run a little bit faster. It's very much reliant on its geometry, which you often find, I think, with Hoka shoes. That the rocker works well, moves you through your foot strike, you get a little bit of lift off the toes, but really that foam isn't giving you a lot back in the way that you are seeing a bit more probably in mid-range trainers from other brands at the moment, perhaps. It certainly is a comfortable foam. It's not crazy soft at the heel or anything like that, but it is soft and comfortable, and it does give you a nice amount of protection, but it's not something that's really bringing a whole load of life, extra life to your runs. It's not like you put it on and think this is a really lively and zippy shoe or anything like that. It's a fun shoe to run in just because the geometry, I think, works quite well and creates quite a smooth ride, and it does have a bit of versatility because it's not too heavy, and like I say, it's got quite that good rocker, so you can up the pace in it reasonably comfortably. But yeah, it's not one that's giving you a load of bounce back or anything like that from the foam. So as a daily trainer, I think it has the kind of range I would expect. It's got a similar amount of range to shoes like the Asics Nova Blast, Puma Velocity Nitro 3, Ghost 16 from Brooks, like those mid-range trainers that are mostly geared up towards those easy runs, providing comfort, but you can do your range of daily training in them. If you're a runner like myself who likes the feeling of lightweight, lively shoes and would want one of those in their rotation, that's the kind of shoe you'll be using for speed work ahead of something like the Clifton 10, something like the Max 6 even, or even the Mac X2 with the plate. But if you are a one-shoe runner, this is a good versatile option that can handle those range of paces. But like I say, don't expect too much from it at faster paces because it hasn't really got that very outstanding foam in the midsole. Speaking of the Nova Blast, actually, it does remind me quite a bit of something like the Nova Blast 4, actually, which I know people liked a lot, and some people don't like the slightly softer feeling of the Nova Blast 5. I think the Clifton 10 has a firmer feeling more in line with the Nova Blast 4, with that rocker just providing a nice amount of push onto the toes. So that might be something to look out for. But overall, yeah, it was an enjoyable run test. I think it does its job very well, the Clifton, but it doesn't really stand out for me compared to some of the other options in the Hoka range, or indeed options from other brands. So I do think the Hoka Clifton 10 is a solid addition to the Clifton line. I think if you've liked previous models, I think you still will like this shoe, despite the fact it's got that change in drop. But if you are put off by that, then I do think the Hoka Skyflow is worth trying. It has a slightly different feel, a stiffer feel, and the supercritical EVA foam, I think, gives you a little bit more life under the toes. It's maybe not quite as cushioned and soft as the Clifton line has been in the past, but I do think the Skyflow is a very good versatile cushioned shoe. I think the Clifton 10 is as well, but I do prefer the Skyflow out of those two. It's a little bit more expensive, but Clifton 10 going up in price, I think, makes that decision maybe a little bit easier if you are looking for a Hoka shoe in this lineup. There is also obviously the Mac and the Bondi in the Hoka range. I didn't really like the Bondi 9 that much myself. I found it just a bit too big. It didn't, although it has the rocker and it has the supercritical EVA foam in there, it really didn't feel like it had much life. It didn't really work that smoothly for me at easy paces. It was a pretty comfortable recovery shoe, but the Clifton 10 can certainly do that job, and I think it has a bit more versatility despite not having the latest and greatest foam in this range. I do think it has a better ride for me despite the fact it has that different EVA in there. Max 6, some will view it as a bit too lightweight to use as a daily trainer. That's exactly the kind of shoe I love using as a daily trainer, the Max 6. It's my favourite of all of those Hoka cushion shoes, but it's not what I maybe recommend as much because it is a bit more lightweight. But if you get on well with those more lightweight shoes, I do think you can do everything in the Max 6. It's a bit cheaper than the other options in Hoka's range. I do think it's a really great, outstanding shoe, but the Clifton 10 does give you a bit more stability and support, especially at the heel. So then you look at those other mid-range trainers I've talked about already. You have got things like Nova Blast 5, Nike Pegasus 41, Brooks Go 16, Puma Velocity Nitro 3. There's lots of really great shoes in this price area, and actually the Clifton is starting to push a bit above them in price because of the rise in the US, and I think that's probably a mistake because I do think the Nova Blast 5 is a fantastic shoe. It's a shoe I'd use in a similar way to the Clifton. It's pretty equal about which one I like the most, but you've probably got a slightly softer feel from the Nova Blast that I think will appeal to more people, so I do think it's the one I'd probably recommend to people just ahead of the Clifton, and it's a little bit cheaper. Do like the Clifton a bit more than the Nike Pegasus, which I found a bit firmer, a bit slappier with that higher drop. Now if you do want a higher drop shoe, then I do think the Puma Velocity Nitro 3 is excellent, and it's quite a lot cheaper than the Clifton now, and that works really well as a daily trainer for everything. Has quite a narrow fit though and isn't that stable. I think the Clifton 10 is a bit more stable. If you like lightweight daily trainers in general, then certainly the Adidas Adizero Evo SL would be one of my top options to check out. It's just a really fun, lively shoe with a really great Lightstrike Pro midsole. Again, not as stable and supportive as the Clifton, but a shoe that you can use a bit of everything. Certainly has a bit more range in terms of speed than the Clifton. New Balance Rebel V4, similar. It's a shoe I view quite similar to something like the Hoka Max 6, but the Rebel V4 is a very stable and supportive shoe because it's got a very wide base and it is incredibly lightweight, really fun daily trainer option. Again, some people might view it as just something for speed work, whereas the Clifton 10 would be their more comfortable cushion shoe to use for daily training. But if you do like those lightweight shoes, Rebel V4, a really good daily training option. New Balance also has the 1080 V14, which is, I think, probably a slightly livelier shoe than the Clifton. I think they've got quite a similar setup all round in terms of the rocker and the geometry, but I think you get a slightly better foam in the 1080 V14. It's a little bit more expensive though, but yeah, two really good options. Again, even there, I think the Clifton 10 is a bit more stable. I think it's a slightly wider shoe. In general, I do think it's a very stable option for a neutral shoe and a really good one on that front. So yeah, all round, I think there's lots of good options out there that I'd maybe look at ahead of the Clifton 10 myself. Like I say, the Asics Nova Blast 5 is straight down the line, a really solid daily trainer. It's a bit cheaper, does a very similar job job, I think maybe slightly better. But if you don't like Noblast 5 and really like Noblast 4, maybe the Clifton 10 might be a little bit more to your taste. As I said, I do think the change in drop is a change, but I don't think it's one that's maybe as dramatic as you might think it is. But if you really do want to stick to the 5mm drop and a Hoka shoe, I would look at the Skyflow, which I do think is a really great shoe all round, or even the Max 6 if you like that slightly lighter feeling on your daily training runs. So overall, did enjoy running the Clifton 10. I think it's a really good daily trainer, sits in its category really well. Changes, I think, haven't really made it an outstanding option, but I don't think they've really made it an unappealing option either. Even though it doesn't get Hoka's latest foam, the geometry of the shoe and the way it's set up still makes it a really comfortable and enjoyable daily trainer, just maybe not one that really stands out in a very crowded area of the market. That's our review of the Hoka Clifton 10. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please like, subscribe, ring the little bell. See you next time.